hands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll begin tonight with the reorganization meeting. Mr. Basil, would you do the roll call, please?
Mr. Basil here. Mrs. Bites.
Here.
Mr. Doty.
Here.
Mr. Kurtz.
Here.
Mr. Rathgeb.
Here.
Mr. Speed.
Here.
Mr. Dowski. Mr. Wolf.
Here.
Mr. Martino.
Here. As I said, this is the organization meeting. Mr. Basil, would you read the notice, please?
Pursuant to Section 4402 of the Pennsylvania Public School Code, this is to notify board members that a meeting of organization of the Dana Boone Area School District will be held Tuesday, December 2nd, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. at the Dana Boone Administrative Office, 2144 Weavertown Road, Douglasville, PA 118.
Doesn't happen when the secretary sits in it.
I think it was my mic.
All right, thank you, Mr. Basil. Are there any public comments on the agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on to nominations for the election of a temporary president. Mr. Basil?
I'm just going to turn this thing off. Okay. Anyone can nominate a temporary president. This does not require a motion or a second. A temporary president must be elected from holdover members of the board. Once all nominations are received, anyone can make a motion to close nomination for temporary president, which will require a second motion. A recorded vote to close nominations. The secretary declares the nominations for temporary board president. According to district policy, all nominations will be accepted, and then a ballot roll call vote will be taken alphabetically by last name. Each board member will state the name of the person they wish to vote for. Do I hear any nominations for temporary president?
I nominate Connor Kurtz.
Second.
I'm sorry, who's second? Mr. Speed. Mr. Speed, thank you.
Motion to close the nominations for temporary board president.
And since there's only one nominee to appoint Mr. Kurtz as temporary president.
I don't have that for me.
You should vote on that. There's a motion.
I have a motion to nominate Mr. Kurtz as temporary board president by Mr. Wolf, second by Mr. Speed.
Mr. Martino. Mr. Martino.
I'm sorry, by Mr. Martino, second by Mr. Speed. Let's make sure I got this in alphabetical order. Okay. Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites?
Yes.
Mr. Doty?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb?
Yes.
Mr. Dowski? Sorry. Mr. Speed?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Martino?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to continue the reorganization meeting, and thank you. I do enjoy this parliamentary procedure, and I thank you for this opportunity to be the temporary president. Moving on. Item 6 on the agenda, the seating of newly elected and re-elected board members. There are no newly seated or re-elected board members. However, I will now read the membership of the board pursuant to the school code. Andrew Basil, Region 2. Carol Bites, Region 2. Brian Doty, Region 3. Connor Kurtz, Region 1. Richard Martino, Region 1. David Rathgeb, Region 1, Larry Speed, Region 2, Tamara Twardowski, Region 3, Michael Wolf, Region 3. Okay, would all holdover board members please stand and raise their right hand for reaffirmation of the oath of office?
I do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. All right, great. Congratulations, everybody.
We will now open the floor for nominations and election of a board president for a one-year term from December 1, 2014 to December 1, 2015. Are there any nominations for board president? Once all nominations are received, anyone can make a motion to close nominations, and it will require a second. So now, are there any nominations for board president?
I nominate Richard Martino.
Are there any further nominations for board president? In that case, is there a motion to close nominations?
So moved.
We have a motion made by Mr. Doty. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion seconded by Mrs. Bites. I believe now we need a roll call to close nominations. Is that correct, Mr. Supers?
That is correct, and if Mr. Speed and Ms. Bites are agreeable, I would recommend that the motion be amended to elect, not only close nominations, but to elect Mr. Martino as board president in light of the fact that there are no other candidates nominated.
Mr. Doty, are you agreeable?
Yes.
Mrs. Bites, are you agreeable?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for verbally confirming that. The motion now is to close nominations and elect Richard Martino board president from December 1 to December 1, 2015. Can we have a roll call vote, please, Mr. Basil?
Mrs. Bites?
Yes.
Mr. Doty?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb?
Yes.
Mr. Speed?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mr. Martino?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Congratulations, Mr. Martino.
Seats again.
Mr. Kurtz just whispered that I was reelected in the hopes I would get it right the second time around. Item number 8 are nominations for the election of a board vice president, a one-year term from December 1st, 2014 to December 1st, 2015. Are there any nominations for vice president?
I nominate Connor Kurtz. Second.
Are there any other nominations? Nomination of Mr. Kurtz by Mr. Doty, second by Mr. Wolf. Are there any other nominations? Is there a motion to close nominations?
So moved.
Again, since there's only one nominee, that the motion be to close nominations and elect Mr. Kurtz as vice president.
Yes.
Motion by Mr. Basil to close nominations and elect Mr. Kurtz vice president. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wolf. Mr. Basil, roll call, please.
Mr. Doty?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb?
Yes.
Mr. Speed?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites?
Yes.
Mr. Martino?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
You don't mind, maybe just say thank you. I appreciate it. When I was a student coming to these meetings, I never, ever anticipated that I'd be able to sit up here as the vice president of this board, and I'm very thankful for that opportunity and to be able to work with all of you and the administration. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kurtz. Item 9 is the appointment of an assistant board secretary for a one-year term from December 1st, 2014 to December 1st, 2015.
That's it. I was done. Last page.
Are there any nominations?
I nominate Mr. Speed.
Second.
Nomination of Mr. Speed by Mrs. Bites, second by Mr. Wolf. Are there any other nominations? We don't need a motion to close here, do we?
Once again.
Just be the same as the others. Motion to close nominations and to elect Mr. Speed as assistant secretary.
Or is it alternate?
It's
No,
assistant.
Is it assistant?
It says assistant.
Okay.
I move that we close nominations and elect Mr. Speed Assistant Board Secretary.
Motion by Mr. Kurtz.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wolf. Mr. Basil?
Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb.
Yes.
Mr. Speed.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites.
Yes.
Mr. Doty.
Yes.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Number 11 is appointment of Pennsylvania School Boards Association representative, a one-year term from December 1st, 2000.
Skip over number 10.
I'm sorry, did I?
That's you.
Pardon me. Item 10, the appointment of a legislative action representative, a one-year term from December 1st, 2014 to December 1st, 2015. Are there any nominations?
Before we do
Nominations, before we do nominations, and this is a waste of time, we don't need to do it, especially I guess because we've done it before, with this board being sworn in. We used to give a little overview of each position before the incumbent member would say what you actually do, in case anybody might be interested. I think that might be helpful for the sake of everybody here that are not fully aware of what the position does. Is that something that we want to continue?
Yes.
Okay.
For the public's sake.
Yeah, and our new student members might be interested in learning too what these positions actually do. So yes, Mr. Martinez, since you're a legislative action representative, could you tell us what you do in that role?
As a legislative action representative, I've spent a lot of time this past year being involved with House Bill, Senate Bill 76, also following what else was happening in the state government, and even in local elections. I've spent time at Amity Township Planning Commission meetings, and I've had contact at various times with either Representative Maloney or State Senator Rafferty. But that's pretty much it, just following what is going on in the legislature that impacts the school district. Having said that, are there any nominations for the position of legislative action representative?
Is that something you want to do again?
Yeah, I'd be willing to do it if nobody else. I mean, if somebody else is interested, I'd step aside, but I'd be willing to do it.
I nominate Mr. Martino.
There we go.
I think Doty second.
Nomination by Mr. Wolf, second by Mr. Doty. So is that a motion to close the nominations and elect me as the representative?
So moved.
So who closed it? Who closed it?
Who closed it?
Brian.
Brian.
And who seconded, Mike? Did you
Brian.
second?
Brian to do.
Brian closed it.
Mike nominated.
Yeah, Mike nominated, Brian seconded and closed.
Thank you.
Roll call, Mr. Basil, please.
Mr. Rathgeb.
Yes.
Mr. Speed.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites.
Yes.
Mr. Doty.
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Item 11, appointment of a Pennsylvania School Boards Association representative, a one-year term from December 1st, 2014 to December 1st, 2015. Mrs. Bites, you want to describe what it is you've done?
Yes, thank you. I've enjoyed serving as the PASBA coordinator. As such, I have made an effort to stay up to date on all of the newsletters and emails from PASBA and forward to my peers on the board items of particular interest that pertain to us and maybe business that we're conducting. And I have participated in the training that they've offered for the new school board member training program. And that's pretty much it.
So is there a nomination? Or I'll ask you the same question Mr. Basil asked me. Would you want to continue serving in that capacity?
I am fine with doing it again. I enjoy disseminating the information. As you all know, I like to do the research, so I like doing it. But with that said, I have no problem with anybody else who might be interested in the position.
Well, then I make a motion if nobody else is interested, I move that we close nominations and appoint Mrs. Bites to be the Pennsylvania School Board Association representative.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kurtz, second by Mr. Rathgeb to close nominations and nominate Mrs. Bites. Mr. Basil?
Mr. Speed.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites.
Yes.
Mr. Doty.
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb.
Yes.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Item 12 is the appointment of a Berks Earned Income Tax representative, a one-year term from December 1st, 2014 to December 1st, 2015.
Actually, it's a TCC now.
I was going to have you explain that, and when you explained what you've been doing and what the position will be doing.
Berks EIT will no longer be in existence as of the end of December. That was actually just voted upon at our last meeting, which was last week. Formerly Berks EIT, or now TCC, is the body that collects income tax for municipalities as well as school districts. Each member of whether you're a participating municipality or a school district has a member that is represented there, and obviously the job there is to make sure that as much of our taxes are being collected in the most efficient manner possible. The Berks EIT TCC deals with obviously individual returns as well as working with businesses that have employees to make sure that the employees have been properly withholding taxes and making sure they're actually getting to the right municipalities and school districts. So that is a challenge as well in the state. So, I think we went through this last meeting. I was re-nominated to the position. So I kind of have that already set aside. However, if somebody would like to step up, I would more than willing to entertain.
Well, as someone who's sat on that committee before you, I think it's a great opportunity for board members to meet other school district board members, as well as now municipality representatives. I mean, there's 18 school districts at the time I was involved, and now there's considerably more with Berks EIT. It's a great place to network and understand what other school districts are doing to solve certain challenges that we face as well. So I sort of throw that out there. It's a good opportunity. They don't meet that often. It's once a quarter, I believe.
It was actually more this past year because of the merger. We were actually meeting almost every month, but normally it is just a quarterly
Mr. Rather, just for the record, for the minutes, and what is the official title going to be now instead of Berkshire and Income Tax Rate?
TCC.
Tax Collection Commission.
What is it?
Tax Collection Commission.
Tax
Collection Commission.
It used to be separate.
And it used to be the Tax Collection Committee, right? And now it's Commission.
Commission committee, that's not it, right? That's sort of, you might be right.
I'm not sure, okay.
Okay, now that we clarified that, are there any nominations to fill the position?
I nominate Mr. Rathgeb.
I second.
Nomination by Mr. Doty, second by Mr. Kurtz. Are there any other nominations?
I move we close nominations and appoint David Rathgeb as our representative on the TCC.
And Mr. Kurtz is correct, it is committee.
Oh, it is committee, not commission.
There's a technical difference.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kurtz, second by Mr. Basil to close nominations and elect Mr. Rathgeb. Mr. Basil, roll call, please.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites?
Yes.
Mr. Doty?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb?
Yes.
Mr. Speed?
Yes.
Mr. Martino?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Item 13 is an appointment of Berks Career and Technology Center representative, a one-year term or a three-year term from January 1, 2015 to December 31st, 2017. Currently, the position is held by Ms. Twardowski, who is not here, so she can't explain what she's been doing. Has anyone else held that position?
Yeah, I held it before she did.
Would you explain, please?
Essentially, we meet monthly, except for the summer and November, you don't meet also. And what's discussed is basically the same work that we do here is their budget work, retirements, you vote on retirements and other personnel moves. If there's equipment that they have to purchase, other things at the startup for the health sciences that we saw. That was a cash outlay that we voted on the CDL program, which is their tractor trailer, you get your CDL license. That was something that was in the works prior to my joining, and it was something really gratifying to see come to fruition. But it's the same type of business that we do here, just meet monthly. As you know from our last meeting over there, you get a nice dinner out of the deal. Kids do a great, wonderful job, and it's also a wonderful networking opportunity when you're talking to other board members about similar issues or negotiations or other problems or policies that we deal with. It's a great opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Are there any nominations for this position?
Is there any indication that Ms. Twardowski would like to continue in the role? I think she would like to.
I would nominate Ms. Twardowski.
Nomination by Mr. Basil.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Doty to nominate Ms. Twardowski in the position.
That we elect Ms. Twardowski to the position. I guess we need to vote on closing nominations. Mr. Supers, there's a motion to nominate Mrs. Twardowski.
No, there's a separate motion. At this point, there's a nomination. You can have a motion to close nominations and elect.
Okay, I move that we close nominations and elect Ms. Twardowski as the Berks Career Technology Center representative.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kurtz, second by Mr. Basil. Mr. Basil, roll call, please.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites?
Yes.
Mr. Doty?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mr. Rathgeb?
Yes.
Mr. Speed?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Martino?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Item 14 is appointment of the Berks Career and Technology Center alternate representative. Position a three-year term from January 1st, 2015 to December 31st, 2017. Position currently held by Mr. Doty. there any difference from what Mr. Wolf already explained?
No, you're just there in case the primary person can't make it. So,
I nominate Mr. Doty.
Second.
Nomination by Mr. Basil, second by Mr. Wolf.
I move we close nominations and elect Brian Doty as the Berks Career and Technology Center alternate representative.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kurtz, second by Mr. Basil. Mr. Basil, roll call, please.
Ms. Spites.
Yes.
Mr. Doty.
yes.
Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mr. Rathke.
Yes.
Mr. Speed.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item
Those are 3-year
16.
terms? Those are 3-year terms then?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Did they just finish 3-year terms, or is that a change?
We could just finish.
We were finishing gaps, I
I
believe.
believe they stepped in for people that.
Got it, thank you.
Item 16 is appointment of a vocational technical school operating committee member, a 3-year term. I'm sorry. Oh,
I'm already in that spot.
no, in this spot, this is the spot held by Mr. Kirschner. And this is saying it's a 3-year term that expires now?
It expires and then it goes, sorry.
Okay, so
Right.
so it's
It's
an
January
appointment for
15th.
January 1, 2015 to December 31st, 2017.
Correct.
As far as what this does, Mr. Kirschner attended the BCTC meeting, our meeting at the BCTC rather, and explained what he does. Are there any nominations to fill this position?
Didn't we vote to do this at the...
Mr. Kirschner is interested in taking it again, and he was going to come tonight, but the weather prohibited him.
I know he's interested. No, we didn't actually vote on extending him 3 years.
I'd make a motion to extend.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Basil, second by Mr. Rathke.
Is that like a nomination?
It's a nomination.
Yes. I move that we close nominations and elect Tom Kirschner to be the vocational technical school operating committee member.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kurtz, second by Mr. Rathke. Roll call, Mr. Basil.
Mr. Doty.
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mr. Rathke.
Yes.
Mr. Speed.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Ms. Spites.
Yes.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Item 17 is appointment of the Blazer Foundation Committee representative from December 1, 2014 to December 1, 2015. Mrs. Bites, you've been doing this. Would you explain what this is?
Yes, I attend their monthly meetings of the Blazer Foundation, and I serve as a liaison between our board and their board, and as a resource. I bring reports to the board, and I arrange for meetings with our admins or other board members to help move along some of their initiatives.
Thank you. Are there any nominations, or Mrs. Bites, did you want to continue with this?
Yes, I'd like to continue with that.
I nominate Mrs. Bites.
Second.
Nomination by Mr. Basil, second by Mr. Wolf.
I move we close nominations and elect Carol Bites as the Blazer Foundation Committee representative.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kurtz, second by Mr. Basil. Mr. Basil, roll call, please.
Mr. Kurtz.
Yes.
Mr. Rathke.
Yes.
Mr. Speed.
Yes.
Mr. Wolf.
Yes.
Mr. Basil, yes. Mrs. Bites.
Yes.
Mr. Doty.
Yes.
Mr. Martino.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Item 18 is the authorization of board officers to sign checks and continue to use the present signature stamp until a new one's made. If necessary, it's not necessary. The board officers haven't changed. So we need a motion to authorize the use of the existing signature stamp.
Well, we did change assistant secretary, I believe, Mr. Speed.
We've never had that.
Well, we had alternate secretary before.
We never had that on the signatures.
Was the alternate secretary authorized to sign checks? I didn't think
No.
so.
Oh, okay.
Pardon?
Well, I'll make a motion then for item 18. Wait, do we need to have a motion for it? It's safe to have a motion for it, so I'll make a motion. Mr. Supers, do you want to weigh in?
Well, I was going to say, this is only if you're changing officers.
Okay, so we don't need it then. All right.
Okay, item 19, committee appointments. Our policy says to make your desires known to the board president in 5 days. What I'd like, if you would, is respond to only me via email by December 9th, which is 5 working days, not counting the weekend, with the following information. Your top 3 choices in order of the committees you prefer to be on. And I'd like to limit it so no one's on more than 3 committees, perhaps 2 permanent committees and 1 ad hoc. Because right now there's sort of an imbalance on the committees. Mr. Basil and I had a brief discussion the other day, so I'd also like you to consider your thoughts on abolishing the Revenue Enhancement Committee and just using the other committees, Finance and Facilities, to initiate any revenue enhancement ideas that may come along. I'm trying to cut down on the time involved if we can. And your thoughts on changing the policy committee from an ad hoc to a permanent committee. It meets every month anyway, and our policies obviously need a lot of work, and I'm going to have to review what BASBA submits to us. So if you would, think about those things. For the board members that weren't here at the beginning of this past one-year term, by rule, our ad hoc committee members do not change except by choice. So if you're on an ad hoc committee already, which are negotiations and transportation, you'll remain on those committees unless you ask to be taken off of them. So again, please email me not later than Tuesday, December 9th, so I could have a plan laid out to be voted on December 15th. Thank you. Let's see where we were here. Item 20 just states that the existing committees and committee appointments will function until the new committees and committee members have been designated and appointed by the president and approved by the board. Are there any comments from the board on anything that took place at the voting meeting?
Yes, I'd just like to comment. Something else happened tonight, which I think is a really important moment. We are welcoming our 2 new student representatives to the board, Ms. Schroeder and Ms. Sweet. This is something that I think is great for the board and great for the district, that we now have a student or students at the table and able to contribute to our meetings. This is something that I personally have hoped for the past at least 5 or 6 years, so I'm glad to see it finally come to fruition and welcome aboard.
Just following along with that, Mrs. Torsha handed out a paper with what your role would be. So you don't have a vote, but in the committee of the whole meetings, especially when there's a discussion as something that pertains to the student body, if you feel you want to chime in with thoughts or comments, please don't be reluctant to do so. We need to hear what you're thinking. That's why you're here. The only other comment I would have is to thank everybody for the second term. I appreciate it. I really do. It's for those of you that may be interested in becoming board president next year. It's a lot of work, but I think it's fulfilling. And I've discussed this with a couple board members already. I don't think anyone should be board president forever. So those of you that are on the board for a couple more years already, or those of you that are planning to run next year, think about becoming board president, because new blood, I think, helps once in a while. Any comments from the superintendent?
I have none. I know.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
Mr. Martin. Mr.
Mr. Martino.
I'd like to thank you for your leadership over the past year, and we really appreciate you taking the reins again in the upcoming year.
Thank you, Mrs. Bites. Thank you very much. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.